Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We are diving into the world of Qasim Ali Shah today.
Oh, fascinating.
He's really something else. He's a motivational speaker and educator from Pakistan.
Okay.
And he's really known for just making you think a little differently, kind of breaking down these complex societal issues.
Yeah.
And he's written books, he's given tons of lectures, and his insights have really reached millions of people.
That's amazing.
And this session in particular, he tackles a topic that I think is relevant to everyone, and that's the difference between perception and reality.
Oh, that's a big one.
Right?
It really is something that we all encounter every single day.
Yeah.
But Qasim Ali Shah, he really kind of brings it to the forefront and makes you think about just how wide that gap can actually get between your perception and the reality of a situation.
Absolutely.
And he also talks about the impact that this has not just on individuals, but on communities and even entire nations.
Exactly. And it's so easy to go through life assuming that you see the world clearly. But our perceptions are shaped by so many different things that we probably don't even realize.
Oh, absolutely. There are biases and preconceived notions.
And the thing about Qasim Ali Shah is he's got such a great way of illustrating his point with real-world examples.
He does.
And one that really stands out to me is when he talks about the story of Neil Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
And this rumor that spread in, I think it was the 80s.
I think so.
That Neil Armstrong actually converted to Islam.
Right.
After hearing the azan on the moon.
Right. The Islamic call to prayer.
Yeah. And it's just amazing how a story like that, with no evidence to back it up, can take hold.
I think it's just because it speaks to this human desire to look for patterns and meaning even where they might not exist.
Yeah.
And especially if it fits in with something that you already want to believe, you know?
Right.
Like, for example, if you already think that Islam is a beautiful religion, this story just confirms that belief for you, so you're more likely to believe it and spread it without necessarily questioning its validity.
Right. And, you know, in psychology, we call this confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And I think this example really shows how that can influence the way we perceive the world.
Absolutely. I mean, we all do it.
Yeah.
And it's important to be aware of it so we can be more critical of the information that we're consuming.
Exactly.
And, you know, this actually reminds me of something that Qasim Ali Shah mentions in his talk about a very important teaching from Islamic tradition.
Oh, yeah?
It's a hadith, which is basically a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and it's about the importance of truthfulness.
Right.
It says that a person is considered a liar if they spread information without verifying its authenticity.
Wow. Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that we have a responsibility to be discerning.
Absolutely.
Especially in today's world where information spreads so quickly and easily.
Yeah, with the internet and social media.
Right. Qasim Ali Shah connects this to the rise of social media. And you know how it's impacting our attention spans.
Yeah, how it's making it harder to focus.
And think critically.
Yeah, and he has a point. I mean, these platforms, they're designed to keep us engaged, right?
Right.
To keep us scrolling and clicking.
Yeah.
And they do this by feeding us content that's designed to trigger our emotions, whether it's outrage, excitement, or fear.
And it's not necessarily about presenting us with accurate information.
Exactly.
But rather information that will keep us glued to our screens.
Yeah, and Qasim Ali Shah talks about how this constant exposure to information can actually erode our ability to think critically and to discern truth from falsehood.
It's like we're being conditioned to prioritize engagement over accuracy.
Exactly.
It's interesting because he also talks about how this online environment is also leading to more deception, with people creating these carefully curated versions of themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, for the world to see.
Yeah.
Like he uses the example of people hiding their phone passwords from their partners.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
Which he sees as a sign of this broader erosion of trust in relationships.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're constantly performing for an invisible audience on social media.
Right.
Trying to portray this perfect image of ourselves.
And it's no surprise that this constant comparison and this pressure to present this perfect image can actually lead to increased anxiety and depression.
Yeah, the research definitely shows that.
Right.
And it's not just individuals, it's impacting institutions as well.
He talks about how there's this growing sense that everyone has a hidden agenda.
Right, like nothing is what it seems.
And that really makes you think about the long-term consequences of this shift in our collective mindset.
Yeah, like how can we build trust and real genuine connection in a world where it feels like everyone is putting on a facade? It's like this blurring between perception and reality, and he talks about it like it's a national problem.
Really?
Yeah, like it affects everything, relationships to politics and the economy. He actually even says that if you want to study this phenomenon, that Pakistan is a really good case study.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Yeah.
What makes him say that?
Well, he talks about how in Pakistan, there's this culture where appearances are more important than substance.
Interesting.
And there's this disconnect between what people say and what they actually do.
Okay.
And it leads to this pervasive distrust, that kind of impacts every aspect of society.
It makes you think how that impacts progress and development on a bigger scale.
Right. Like if you can't trust anyone, how can you work together to achieve common goals?
Exactly.
And I think he brings up this point with a sense of urgency, like he sees his country and maybe even the world headed down a dangerous path if we don't start questioning what we're being told and start looking for the truth ourselves.
So how do we break free from this cycle? What does he suggest we do?
Well, he uses this really interesting analogy.
Okay.
He says, imagine you're driving through a thick fog.
Yeah.
Would you speed up because you can't see clearly?
No.
Of course not. You would slow down and be more cautious.
Right.
Rely on your instincts and other tools to navigate safely.
That's a great analogy. He's basically saying that we need to be more cautious with information.
You're right.
Be more critical of what we see and what we hear, and basically question everything.
Yeah, especially information that seems to confirm our biases.
Right.
And he really calls out the media here for their role in this problem.
In what way?
Well, he argues that media outlets, they often care more about sensationalism than truth.
Because it gets more attention.
Right. It gets more attention and it generates more profits. They know that fear and outrage, that's what sells.
Yeah.
So they often present a skewed or exaggerated version of reality.
It's like how we see news headlines, right? They're always designed to provoke a reaction.
Exactly. Even if the story is much more complex than the headline makes it seem.
Right.
And he gives the example of news channels focusing on some horrible accident with graphic details.
Okay.
Even though statistically speaking, these accidents are rare.
Right.
But by emphasizing these extreme cases, they create this distorted perception of risk in our minds.
Like they're playing on our fears.
Exactly.
Keep us coming back for more.
Yeah, and he compares this to how marketing works.
Okay.
Like with skin whitening creams.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think those celebrities actually use those products?
Right. Probably not.
But the perception that they create, that's what sells.
And it's not just that. He mentions cigarette ads.
Right, where smoking is portrayed as cool and rebellious.
Even though we know the health risks.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's all about crafting this image.
Yeah.
A perception that influences behavior regardless of the truth.
And it happens everywhere, not just advertising.
Yeah. He argues it affects many aspects of our lives.
So how do we become more discerning?
Yeah.
Break free from this cycle of manipulation.
Well, he emphasizes the importance of asking questions.
Okay.
Meaningful questions and cultivating this healthy skepticism and really trying to see beyond the surface to understand the motivations behind things.
Okay.
And he brings up the Quran, which repeatedly commands us to investigate and to reflect and to use our intelligence to separate truth from falsehood.
So he's basically bringing those timeless principles to this modern world.
Right. Because he thinks that we've kind of abandoned those principles in favor of just accepting things and constantly needing external validation.
Like we need that like button.
Yeah, exactly. We're so busy chasing likes and seeking approval that we forget how to think critically and trust our own judgment.
Like we've given up our thinking to algorithms.
Exactly. And he's challenging us to take that power back, you know?
Yeah.
To rediscover the joy of asking difficult questions and wanting to learn not just for information, but for personal growth and to understand ourselves and the world better.
That's powerful. And it's not just about learning facts and figures, right?
No.
He talks about character and integrity.
Absolutely. He argues that true success is about pleasing God, not about impressing others or chasing possessions.
Right.
It's about living a meaningful life guided by your values.
Regardless of your faith, that really resonates.
It's a universal message.
Be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and he admits it's not easy,
Yeah.
requires effort,
Self-reflection.
and being willing to challenge your own beliefs.
So it's a call to action. Wake up and start living more consciously.
Exactly. He's urging us to break free from all the distractions that consume our attention, to resist instant gratification, and rediscover what truly makes us feel fulfilled.
Like he's saying, don't let the world control your reality.
Right. Choose to create a reality that aligns with your values and what you want.
Mm.
And he's not saying you need to totally disconnect from technology.
Yeah.
It's about using it mindfully, remembering that true happiness comes from real connections, from following your passions and living with integrity.
I like how he paints this picture of people putting on a brave face while internally they're struggling.
Yeah, he talks about people building bigger houses but having less peace and relationships falling apart despite having all this material wealth.
It's like a spiritual emptiness.
It is. We're chasing validation and possessions.
And ignoring our inner selves. Yeah, it's like we've traded our well-being for this illusion of success.
Right, and he even shares his own struggles, you know?
Really?
Yeah, he talks about how people try to bring him down and twist his words.
It makes him seem more human.
Yeah, and he encourages us to just focus on doing good and finding the truth even when it's tough.
Yeah.
It's like he's not just preaching, he's in the trenches with us.
And you know what I find really powerful is that even though he paints this kind of bleak picture,
Yeah.
there's this underlying sense of hope in his message.
Oh, definitely.
You know, he acknowledges the struggles, but he's reminding us that we have the power to make a different choice.
It's about taking responsibility for our own happiness.
Yeah, and letting go of this need to control everything.
And, you know, trusting in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And focusing on what we can actually control. Our thoughts, actions, and intentions.
So we all have a choice.
We do.
Get caught up in all the negativity and fear
Or rise above it.
and focus on what truly matters.
You know, he reminds us that real fulfillment doesn't come from external things.
Right.
It comes from connecting with our purpose and contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
So where do we go from here? What are the key takeaways from Qasim Ali Shah's message?
Well, I think he's challenging us to become more aware of how we see the world.
Yeah.
And to be more intentional in how we navigate all the complexities out there.
Be critical thinkers.
Yes. Question our assumptions, look for the truth, and build a reality based on something solid, not just on fleeting perceptions or what other people think.
Live with integrity and authenticity.
Exactly. He's urging us to wake up from this kind of collective illusion, break free from the matrix, and start living lives filled with meaning and purpose.
It's about understanding that we have the power to shape our own reality.
Even in this chaotic world.
So I guess the big question for all of us is this. In what areas of your life are you letting perception dictate your reality?
Right, and what steps can you take to make sure your decisions are rooted in truth, in your values, and in a deep understanding of who you are and what you want to create in this world?
That's something to really think about. Until next time, keep diving deeper.